So we're gonna talk about Shane from Stardew Valley, or are we gonna talk about just Stardew Valley in general at first? And you want to start with
Well,
Shane, or is that a heavy?
no, this is the Shane Train episode, y'all. What's up?
Okay, so
Jarrell's on the Shane Train.
Okay, listen, I got a ticket and I'm sitting down, I'm partying like the rest of you.
Once you're on, you can't get off.
So on a lot of a lot of our content that we record, you will hear me shit on Shane from Stardew a lot, and
it's unnecessary.
It is. I will say I was being unnecessarily mean for Shane because I did not give him a chance in the game. I would just go up to him and go, "Oh, I hate this guy," every time because all his side quests and everything, he was always really depressed. And I was looking at him as a video game kind of surface character, but I've come to realize that Shane, at least to me, depicts how a person in a small town feels.
Looking at any of the Stardew characters as just like a video game character is kind of like a dangerous move because like Stardew Valley has been well written enough that everyone has been developed even if they don't seem like it. Like Haley, who when you talk to her is just, you get like, is ignoring you. Like,
which is interesting that you say that because that's how I felt about everyone else. But as soon as I started diving deeper into all the characters and started reading more into Shane, I realized, wow, of any of the characters here, he represents, at least from my experience when I moved like to an area to here, a lot of people from small towns live here, of a person who comes from a small town.
No, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I was telling my husband Mac about this. I was explaining all the bachelors to him because Mac doesn't play Stardew Valley. He just listens to me like screech about it at midnight. And so he was like, okay, well, who can I marry? And I'm like, oh, well, you've got this guy who's a doctor who didn't want to be a doctor. He wanted to be a pilot, and he's afraid of heights. And Mac's like, oh. And then you have this kid who's helping raise his younger brother because his dad's off at war and his single mom's neurotic. And you have Shane, who's raising his goddaughter but is an alcoholic who works for like a corporation. And this kid wants to be a programmer but can't afford to move to the city. And it's like, that was my life. That's where I grew up.
Yeah, and I think that I was a little far removed. Cause I grew up in New York City, so I was a little far removed from that. But you know, he starts off as like just a grumpy, depressed person. You know, and I think it was the heart event where. Is it the first heart event or the second one where he's passed out in his room?
I think that's the second one. The first one is where you're sitting on the docks by his and Marnie's house.
And he gives you a beer.
Yeah, and he's just like suddenly like you caught him at a vulnerable moment and he just rides it out.
Yeah. Which is kind of smooth. But yeah, that was the moment where I just reading into it, I was like, wow, he definitely has depth to him in a way. Like it's kind of like he has this depressive facade that he's using to kind of crutch his way through his days, and I feel him where he says like all he does is go to work, drink, and then go to sleep, and then go back to work and drink and repeat it. So and you know he he dives down into this alcoholism, and it's unfortunate what happens where he's passed out in his room. That's the first heart event. The second heart event. Then the next one after is when he's on the cliffside. Is that the next one?
Yeah, that's after his room, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and he's on the cliffside, and he had told Jas in the previous heart event or he just said out loud that hopefully he wouldn't be around long enough.
Yeah, Marnie asks him if he has a plan. It's like, don't you have a plan? What about the future? And he's like, ugh, the future? Well, hopefully I won't be around for the future. And then Jas is in the same room. It's like, oh.
Yeah, and then Jas runs away crying, and it's, But I think that was the moment for me where I was like, wow, I mean, this is a conversation I've had with a lot of people. I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends. Because I would say that I'm a little too ambitious for my own self with a lot of things. But that's just from my family, where I come from. And then when I moved here, I met a lot of people where I speak a certain way. They're like, wow, you really have it figured out. And I was like, yeah, doesn't everyone? And I didn't realize at that young of an age that that's not really a thing that happens, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely related with him there, and I was like, yeah, no, this is rough, especially to be his age. How old is Shane? Did they ever canon an age for him?
No, they haven't canon aged for anyone. I, in my headcanon list, have him at about 28. Like,
that's where I was thinking around.
That age where your 20s have flown by, and it's like, what do you have to fucking show for it?
Yeah. But it's...
What's up? That's where I am.
Listen, You're gonna be 25. I'm gonna be 26.
That's a year.
I know, but it feels so long. But you start seeing after that moment, after that cliffside, is when things start taking an uphill, where he starts doing chores. When you go to the Tumblers game with him.
Oh
and
yeah,
it's
that's
kinda
the
like
10 heart event, y'all.
That's 10 heart, right? That's your first kiss with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are other things in dialogue and such that shows that he's he's a different person, but he's kind of learning to be a different person. You know?
And the really cool thing about Shane is or the thing about Stardew Valley and Eric Barone, is that even after you take Shane to see Harvey, who talks him into going to see a counselor in the city, and even after you kiss, you have your first kiss and you marry him and you move in together and you have this life that neither of you thought that was really attainable, like it doesn't give you the romance and a good attitude fixes everything. Like, he's not suddenly like undepressed. Like,
right.
He still has bad days and he can still be mean to you. And I'm glad that they don't push the everything's better narrative.
I do like that too, and I like that the character himself breaks out of it, And it's not even like a joyful, I'm better. It's more of like okay, I can stand now, And he's not really running. He's kind of shuffling.
Yeah, like the day after the cliff event, and
yeah.
Man, I wanted to talk about that. Let me flip to my cool note, because like that is kind of heavier than I think anyone thinks about. Because he's like, oh yeah, hey, I'm really sorry about last night. And then there's like an ellipses, and he ends it on embarrassing.
Yeah.
And there's just so much in that one word. Like, if you've ever been in that headspace, or if you've ever had like, okay, I'm gonna throw out trigger warning, y'all.
Yep.
Because it's not really possible to talk about Shane without talking about the concept of suicide. So if that's something that makes you uncomfortable, tag out now.
Yeah,
I'll give you a couple seconds to...
I'll timestamp when we come back in.
But I have had those nights where you just kind of... And it's like... It's hard, I don't know, it's weird and hard to talk about, but the next day you think about the night before, and it feels like a weird kind of dream. It feels like it happened, you were there.
Yeah.
But there aren't really words for it, and it kind of feels like it happened far away underwater to someone else. And so like that moment where he just like sums it up as embarrassing, because what else do you say, especially if someone's there to like, to observe it or see it, then it's weird.
Oh, I understand that. Like, kind of in the same context, I used to go and hang out. You remember when I was going through a bad period in my life, and I used to hang out at the park that was down there, and I just sit like in the like it's not gravel, it's like sawdust.
The mulch.
There you go. It's just mulch under the swings. I just sit in that, and I'm like, I don't know. I just hear, and I just kind of just get lost in there, and I'm like, I have those thoughts. You know what I mean? Or at the time, I had those thoughts, and then wake up the day after, and I was like, what did I even do last night? And it's like a bit of separation. So embarrassing is definitely it, because even for myself, it's like I had the thought of like, what if someone found me there? How would I have explained myself? Or what if someone walked up to me today and asked me like, what were you doing there? It's definite embarrassment. And I felt that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought about that when I saw that moment, but I didn't think to say anything, because I don't personally feel embarrassment as easily, but that's like one of those vulnerable moments for me that really keyed me in. So that's what kind of like brought me into his character.
Yeah.
Where I was like, there's a lot more to relate to him than what I was jumping to before, And I was definitely sure that the characters in this game were not made to just be like on the surface, And this is a little bit more of a deeper dive, but I was thinking there's possibly even unconsciously that I knew that, and I just wanted to avoid his character and seeing where this went.
Oh, you think so? I never thought about that.
Because there's part of his character that as I started getting older into my 20s, and after a bunch of relationships have come and ended, and I'm done with school and stuff like that, I started to kind of become that way, where it's like I started falling in a cycle, and then I started getting depressed because I was in a cycle. I wasn't drinking, but it was just like I started seeing it like, none of this really matters. Why am I even bothering with this? Am I going to be stuck here now because I made the decision to be here, And I think that maybe unconsciously I was trying to avoid Shane as a character because I related to that hard.
No, yeah, I think I had the opposite where I just like saw so much of myself there, like
Mm-hmm.
working a job for minimum wage that you don't want to, and being stuck in the situation that ultimately you put yourself in.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, of course, Jas is there, and Jas isn't his kid,
Mm-hmm.
but he's working to support her, and he lives with his aunt, and living with your family is embarrassing when you're like almost 30.
Yeah.
And so there's some like things in his dialogue where it seems like I'm not sure like what Shane's life before Stardew Valley was, but like we know that his family outside of Marnie like wasn't great. Like Marnie's brother or sister, whoever his dad or mom is, like wasn't, I don't think, very nurturing. There's a bit of dialogue that he has where he's talking about how Jas and Marnie are kind of a weird family, and but he likes it because his previous family like wasn't anything great. And so I kind of, it's most of this is headcanon and speculation, but I think he like lived somewhere like the city, and he had met Jas's parents, and then whatever happened to them, and he
Right.
couldn't afford to support her, so he had to move in with his aunt and get this shitty job at Joja Mart.
Right.
So he's doing this thing that he has to do. He doesn't really like it.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what to do.
He had a lot of bad circumstance fall on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just, I don't know.
I can see that with his interaction with your character. And I didn't marry Shane in the game and any of my characters, but you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like he's trying. He's trying to connect in some way. Am I wrong to say that?
I don't know what you mean.
Like, he does weird things, like the pizza wallpaper.
Oh.
And pizza is his thing. So it seems like something that he's trying to share with you in a way.
Maybe.
I don't know if the creators, I don't know if they want it to be that, like, to be thought that in depth, but that's what it seems like to me.
I think that might be reading too much into it. I think all of the spouses just do whatever they want to your house.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm glad you brought up the pizza thing, because that reminds me that Shane is also just like the picture of like depression, because even on like a day where he doesn't go to Joja or isn't at the tavern, he's just like standing in front of the microwave and he's like, what do I want to microwave for lunch today? Like, he just can't be bothered.
Yeah. I wonder. Maybe I thought, you know me, I think a lot. So maybe I thought too deep into that with his character. But that's what it feels like to me with explaining like his parents and his family. It's just him wanting to, because I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the options when he's on the cliffside is say, what about Jas?
Yeah.
And then, I think, does that make him feel worse?
It does. So
Okay.
I've played this out a couple times. So there are 3 options. There's what about Jas? There's that's a sin.
Yeah, that is one.
And
of those.
then there's something to the effect of like, I can't really tell you what to do, but I'd miss you.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what it is, but that's what it comes out to. I've never told him that killing himself would be a sin.
Okay.
I couldn't bring myself to do it. If you bring up Jas, he's like, oh God, Jas, I'm a horrible, selfish person. Now I feel worse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, that was bad. And of course, that's not something you would want someone to tell you. It's like, what about all these people you're gonna leave the fuck behind?
Right.
Like, so like, the last option is kind of always the best one.
And he does care about Jas. A
Yeah,
lot.
that's the thing, is like, Shane loves Jas so much, and it's like there's one of the scenes where it's after the cliff, and he's like cut back on drinking, and he has a present for Jas, and it's like this, I don't know, something bunny slipper.
Oh, it's like
bunny jewel slippers.
Bunny jewel slippers or something. Yeah.
And she's just super excited, and she hugs him, and he's just like surprised and horrified.
Well, she kind of just like a phantom leaps over the present and sticks to his face.
That's true. But I feel like I wanted to see that dynamic pushed a little more. I would have liked to have seen more about Shane and Jas, or to see more about Shane and Jas, since there are still updates coming out.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wonder if they plan on elaborating a little. I mean, this is a big game in terms of outside of the little personal stories they have. So I wonder if they're going to expand a lot more on that.
I'm not sure. One thing that kind of made me mad, not mad, it's certainly not mad, but when I married Shane, I guess I kind of knew that it wouldn't, but I also kind of thought that Jas would move in.
Oh, okay.
And that we would get her, and I'm just kind of like devastated that I like took Shane and Jas apart.
Yeah, it would have been cool if at least you say, for example, there were days where it's like he's obviously not going to do really much, but he's like sitting on the porch or standing there in front, and Jas is like hanging out in your farm
Yeah.
or something, you know.
No, yeah, she's
I
never.
like
He
that.
goes down to Marnie's, but she's never up at my house.
Right.
I mean, which I guess is a lot to ask.
That is a lot to ask.
Since all of the marriages were supposed to be relatively like uniform, like, excuse me, programming and planning wise.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'd have been cool though. Shane as a character, for me in a way, it's like I liked looking into him just a little further in because, in terms of just being relatable, because in a way it's like he's the center character and then these other characters are doing stuff. For example, like Lewis, as much as we don't like Lewis, he is ultimately kind of a dick if you really put it on the table.
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings about Lewis.
Lewis, he does a lot of shitty things and he's incredibly prideful in a way about being mayor and about Stardew Valley, kind of like, and there are little things that I'm probably looking way too deep into this, but it's like like the potluck and stuff like that, you know. It's like a lot of pressure on the town, on the villagers
to impress the governor,
you know, and like, which in turns will just be for his benefit, you know. It's a lot of things for his benefit, and you know, getting his trousers out of what's your name's house,
Marnie.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I don't know if we need to have a Lewis episode.
No,
or
we
not.
don't.
I've got.
I mean, we could.
I've got problems with Lewis.
Yeah.
One, he's terrible to Sam, and Sam is a skateboarding delinquent. Everyone knows that, but he's like unnecessarily mean to Sam over all of the other youths in the village.
Right.
And also, I don't like the way he treats Marnie, because Marnie like is actively pursuing a relationship, and he's like, but my mayorship. Like
he's doing anything that's incredibly important.
Like 12 people live in your town, man.
Exactly.
Like make a fucking fist.
Like he doesn't. Oh man, Marnie, she does so much. It's, you know, and you have all these. I think that's the thing about the game I'm realizing is, if you look at the middle, you have a lot of the younger characters. I'm excluding Jazz and what's the little boy's name? Vincent. I'm excluding those two because there's not really much you can do with them. They don't give you quests or anything. But you have like Abigail, Sam. I'm never gonna remember anyone's names in this game.
Abigail, Sam, Maru,
Haley.
Are you counting like all of the bachelors or just the youngish ones?
I'm just counting youngish characters.
Sebastian,
yeah.
That's kind of them, because once you get into like Emily, Shane, and Harvey, they're kind of like older.
Yeah, I'm counting them as like the older group. So because you have like all the older people, older people that are, you know, I call them like the Stardew seniors. You know, then you have the older adults that are, you know, I wouldn't really consider like Emily and those guys the older adults.
No, yeah.
I consider like Gus and Lewis.
Yeah, Robin and Demetrius, what have you.
I call them the older adults, and then you have the adults, which would be Harvey, which would be Emily, which would be unless you consider Harvey. Yeah, I know you headcanon him younger.
No, I have him. Hold on, I have a list, y'all. No, I think I have him as like 34.
Okay. Yeah, so I count them as like they're like that generation right after. You know, they're like that breakthrough generation that's like a mix of the city life and the small town life more so.
In that grouping, I have Emily, Elliot, Shane, and Harvey.
Okay, yeah. And that's what I consider, because I'd say of that group, I consider Shane to be the youngest out of them all, you know?
I had Emily and Elliot as younger than Shane.
Elliot, I feel, is a little older, because he's kind of in that personal journey kind of age, you know?
Yeah, I've got him at 27.
27? I think that he would be like 30.
You think so?
Just the way that he establishes himself.
I think I do set them all a little younger than maybe I meant to, but...
Because 28, I think, is a great age for Shane. I feel like that. Because the way he acts is that dynamic of the older adults, you know, like, I gotta go to work, I gotta do this, I gotta support myself, or his habit, and be there for Jazz, you know? But then he has this other side of himself where he wants to leave, where he wants to do these other things. It's like youthful ambition. So that's why I think he's good in that 28-year-old age, because it's a mix. He's the in-between of both of these different sides, if that makes sense. So, because he's like, I consider him way more mature than a lot of the younger bachelors, and, you know, lesser mature than the adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when I harp on about Shane, it's usually kind of joking, because, I mean, you know, how do you get into all of this? So, and that is a disservice to his character, because I boil it down so we can move on with the conversation, but... What did I do, or what did I say that made you want to open up this?
It was more so your... Okay, here's the events. It was during some of the episodes, you know, you'd mentioned Shane, and I instantly shit on Shane. But because we didn't for the episodes up until the point where we recorded, we haven't done anything with him, anything major with him or anything. So we just have the basic surface dialogue with him and such. I think we haven't even done like any quests really for him, but it was after that we spoke about him during some of the podcast episodes, and then I think you had said something along the lines of going on Tumblr and seeing you telling me that a lot of people like Shane, and then I was like, wow, people really like this character, huh? So then I went on Tumblr and I read. I just saw like what we're looking at now on my screen is just like a bunch of art that people have and stuff like that. And I was just reading how people felt about him, their interpretations of him. You know, they love him and Charlie a lot. Charlie Shane's chicken.
Shane loves chickens, y'all. Chickens. He loves Marnie's chickens.
Yep, he has this weird lab in his barn of blue chickens.
Oh my gosh. You remember the heart event with Clint?
Yeah.
I think he gave those chickens Jojo Blue, and I think that's why they're blue now, and it's just in their DNA.
It's in their DNA, yeah.
It was such a bad idea.
So, you know, that event showed me that now that he's no longer drinking and he's trying to pick his life back up, he's been doing that for so many years, just this in and out day-to-day thing that he's been up to, and so depressed that now he's picking himself back up. He's getting in touch with that kind of innocence that he's lost. Because I feel like making blue chickens and making friends with a chicken, you know, and then telling that chicken they're gonna have the best eggs, you know, ever, you know, and then beat Joja, and he has all these kind of like childlike ambitions, and it's like, oh, he's getting his innocence back in a way, you know. He's no longer that early Shane we've seen. Now he's like a new Shane, you know, and that's I respected that, honestly, in terms of writing, because I've seen so many games and even just books or video movies or what have you where that character has like a hard fall off right after the initial like upbringing, which happens occasionally, but a lot of people tend to want to write that in. But I liked in this, as I said, it was like he got off his hands and knees and he was stumbling. He wasn't exactly running or walking yet. And then as time went on, he started to pick himself up and up now.
I don't remember exactly where it falls, but he's like talking. Oh, it was the scene with the bunny jewel slippers. But before that happens, he's talking to Marnie, and he says something along the lines of, I know I have people who care about me. I know relying on people doesn't make me weak.
Yeah.
And I've just really attached myself to that concept because like that I think is really hard to kind of throw off. Like I like doing things for myself, and I don't like getting help, and I don't like being sick because that means people want to help me, and it's like, don't get away from me. Like I can do this. And like I haven't even come to that realization for myself. So just like seeing it is, I'm glad it worked for him. I'm glad that he sees that.
Because I try to live my life without being a burden to a lot of people. Like I don't want to like, you know, break something and have to call someone to fix it for me, you know? Because I just feel it's not like a weakness thing. It's like I don't want to inconvenience anyone. That's a personal thing with me. But I've been getting over it recently. It's like if something happens and I need help, I call someone. You know, and I've been slowly realizing that they would do the same. So it's not really, and I'm not calling anyone that would be upset with me for asking. So, but that was a moment for me too. It was like, no, he's right. You really shouldn't do that. And I mean, if any of you have come across this video and you're watching and you're new to Stardew, because I know it came out on the Switch, there's a lot of new people playing.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're new to Stardew, definitely take some time and like get to know these characters and stuff. I mean, more than just being video game characters, they're well written, and like as you can see what we've spoken about so far, there's a lot of concepts.
No, yeah, it's so easy to just kind of write them all off based on like their first line of dialogue, which I think is the point, because it's a game about, you know, joining this community and getting to know these people. And of course you don't like all of them like right off the bat. Like when you first meet Shane, I think the first thing he says is, "Why are you speaking to me?" Yeah. And Haley ignores you, and Abigail like just wants to talk about herself, and Sebastian is like, "Why are you in my bedroom?" And
if you take that past a video game like way of thinking, that's very how I imagine if I were to move into a small town where everyone knew each other and stuff, and I was just this new stranger out of nowhere, you know? I think that, you know, you just get the surface level because you don't have any idea what the stories are going on.
And it's like, and of course it's a video game, and you want people to like you automatically, because that's the way video games work and have worked, which brings me up like a point about World's Dawn, which is a game I've been playing, which is like supposed to be like the next best Stardew Valley if you've already put in 382 hours. Like I don't know who did that, but and but everyone I have a problem. But everyone in World's Dawn, when you meet them, is like nice to you right off the bat. They're glad that you're there, and this is such a cool village we have, and everyone likes each other, and like games that go about things like that, which is like what Harvest Moon does.
Yeah.
I feel disingenuous, especially now that I've played Stardew Valley.
Yeah, I can agree with that, because I like the way Stardew goes upon things. 'Cause I feel like I'm earning the relationships much like I have to in real life. You know, like when I first moved to this city, I didn't know anyone at all, and it was like I knew my roommate, and from there I knew his friends, and then from there I'd go to events with his friends at school or whoever else, and at that point they knew everyone, so I had to force myself to meet someone.
Yeah.
So I go to someone near my class, and almost like a video game, I would work up the conversations here and there. You know, eventually get like whoever's number, and it's like, oh, you're into gaming, cool, we can play this, add me. You know, and then that relationship went on from there. And a lot of those people I know now. You know, like almost 8 years later. You know, and I'm still. I mean, I live with Dom. You know, like same thing happened with him. There was like a build up of conversations because I sat behind him in my first class. So it's like one of those things that I can relate to. That's why I like that system of hearts this game has. I know the way they go upon it is giving people stuff. You know, but I mean that's the video game aspect of it. I mean,
no, yeah, there are some things you just can't help.
That's a lot of dialogue to write if you were going to have it through conversation. Which I'm glad that it's not based on that. I'm glad. If we're gonna do like farming comparisons, I'm glad Stardew Valley only lets you talk to whoever like once a day, and then they don't have anything else to say, because that keeps their dialogue pool fresher. Whereas in World's Dawn, you can talk to a person as much as you want, and they have like 4 or 5 things that they cycle through, but then they cycle through those 4 or 5 things, and like then what? World's Dawn was done in the RPG Maker engine, right?
Yeah, and it was done very well. A lot of work was put into it. I'm not saying it's a bad game at all.
For what I saw, it was good. I mean, I was impressed because I didn't. Out of all the types of games I've seen people do in the RPG Maker engine, I haven't seen anyone do that type of game. So I was really impressed when I watched you play that, when you stream that.
Yeah, it's very in-depth. It's very well written. Like, I'm not, like putting it in the garbage at all, but... Yeah,
it's just in comparison. I think that one has definitely, and this isn't because it's made on the engine, but that one has definitely more of an RPG feel where everyone already has this type of surface, as you said, happy, more welcoming personality, you know? And... I think that maybe the reason for that is because there is the way the game is written is probably primary objective, and then the secondary objectives involving these other characters. As in Stardew, each individual person can become your primary objective if you wanted it to be that way. You know, if you wanted to just spend the time getting the 10 hearts directly with this person, it won't impede your story progress.
No, yeah, like World's Dawn has like an overarching kind of Harvest Moon story where you move to this place and there are these spirits you have to appease so they'll help the village flourish again. And Stardew doesn't really have that. Like, there's the community center, which doesn't, in the overarching goals of the village, doesn't really matter. Yeah,
it's definitely kind of, I guess the way I can compare it is Stardew feels a little more like a TV show in the way. If you think of like Supernatural or something, because there are supernatural elements to Stardew Valley, you know, but some episodes, if you choose, you can go ahead and fight monsters. You can go to the community center stuff, you know what I mean? You can see that. But then these other episodes, which happen more so than these other ones, it's about the characters. It's about these relationships, you know?
It's impossible to talk about a thing without talking about, like, its fandom, and it's impossible to talk about fandoms without, like, you know, fan fiction and fan art. And in a lot of Stardew fan fiction, it talks about that separation between the real and unreal, and how, like, these OCs move to this little village where, you know, it's far away from the city, and things that are far from the city tend to be inherently more magical by just everyone's standards across mythology.
For some reason.
And so it's a lot of their OCs, like, coping with that. Like, do I help these fairies remake my town, or do I go with this corporation and money, which is what I know, which is what everyone knows, which is what makes sense, rather than working with the fairies who live in the igloo in the community center. Like, there's a witch in the woods. Like, there's a wizard. He's my neighbor. Like, there are shadow people in the dungeon. Like, what now? What do I do?
Exactly. Which is really cool that that's part of the entire thing. And it doesn't take away from one or the other, which is the thing I really like about Stardew.
Yeah, it's so low key. Like, you have to go looking for it to be the focus of the game, and it's not like, it doesn't. undermine anything. It's not heavy-handed.
Yeah, but it's also right in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see the community center stuff. You see the little
Little Apple
yeah,
Boys.
little Apple
Junimos.
Boys, the Junimos,
Excuse me.
yeah, Junimos, yeah. You see them, and then you also see the shrines everywhere. You know, that you can the shrines
Mm-hmm.
teleport you around. So it's like the magic is also right there. You know, but then at the same time, it's so in the back. You know, again, I just feel like you can choose either which way
Mm-hmm.
to go with that, and I like that. Yeah, and going back to Shane now as a character, it's just he seems like almost in a way when I started reading more into him, and I guess why I started thinking way deeper than just the way the game has it, because I started reading people's interpretations of characters in Stardew,
Mm-hmm.
and people who, and I agree with some. I can't pull it up here, but the other night I was going through and someone mentioned that Shane feels like that first character you make friends with in a game about moving to a small town because he hates it there. You know, he hates it there. He kind of hates you at first too. You know what I mean? But like, you kind of cling to him for that reason. You know, he knows everything here. He knows what's going on because he's been here,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what he knows.
And I think he is one of the newest additions to the town.
Yeah.
Like after you.
Mhm.
Like I think he was the next person. Him and Elliot.
Yeah. So I think that he has that sort of thing, but instead of like you both landed in the town, but he just went to work at this corporation.
Well, he didn't have his grandfather's farm to work
Yeah,
on.
exactly. That's what I mean. It's like
Like,
he
Circumstance.
he's working on all this stuff, and then you yourself had the stuff kind of given to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you both come from this beginning, you know, being near a city and stuff. So I think that dynamic's really cool too.
No, yeah. Like, I think, like, Stardew Valley seems like surface level, like such a cute, like fun game. Like my friend Riley really wanted to play it because they saw me like playing it all the time, and then I was talking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, Sam's dad has PTSD from the war,
Mhm.
and Pam's an alcoholic who semi-treats her daughter poorly, and Shane is also an alcoholic who semi-treats his goddaughter poorly. And it's like, so you're moving and you're starting a new life, but really you're starting over in this place that's full of these people who have like unattainable or unachieved or like just dreams that have kind of been shriveled up or
Mhm.
abandoned,
Mhm.
and they've had to make do with something else, like Harvey and the wanting to be a pilot but becoming a doctor kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like these people who are all trying to like make peace with themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. Stardew's a good game, and I'm glad that I looked into Shane's character because this was a game that I played when I played the same week it came out, and then I continued playing. I loved it, you know. But I was more interested in a lot of the RPG-like stuff, so I never at first started looking into the characters and things of that nature. And at that time, it didn't catch on as quickly. There were a lot of people who loved it, you know, but it didn't catch on to the depth, like looking at all this art and stuff. Like there wasn't that much of this out yet.
What was pre-Renaissance Shane Stardew like for you?
I don't think I even spoke to anyone, really. When early Stardew, it was like, all right, this person has a quest, I'm going to go do it. And then I'm going to go concentrate on these other little quests, which is something I want with my farm.
Right.
But I never really tried to make friends. The only time was Marnie to get Lewis's shorts, and that was the only person I got to any type of higher star or heart level with at that time period.
I never did the quests and only talked to people all day.
But that was it later on for me, was after like 2 or 3 updates into the game, and I had gotten it on my PS4.
Yeah, it was different for me because I started playing after one of the most recent updates where they made Shane and Emily marriageable candidates. I started playing Stardew related. It had already been out for a year. Everyone had already been pretty much established, and so I just assumed everyone had been marriageable the whole time, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah, which wasn't the case at all. Yeah, and yeah, it's cool, like seeing how much this game has an effect on people.
Have you seen Emily's Heart event where she does clothing therapy?
I haven't.
Okay, it's really good. And another thing is, like, other people's heart events can reveal more about other characters. So Emily has clothing therapy at Lewis's house, I think because he has the biggest house.
Mm-hmm. Of course he does.
That's not even true. Robin's house is way bigger.
That's true.
But she, like, has this closet and she sets up a bunch of clothes and she invites a bunch of people to, like, go in, put on whatever they want, and come out as, like, the real them. And, like, Abigail goes in and she comes out in a suit of armor.
Abigail's so good.
And
I love that girl.
Lewis goes in and he comes out looking real fucking dapper.
Oh my god, Lewis. Of course he would.
But Shane goes in and he comes out with like a spiked collar and like a leather vest and tight ass leather pants.
Oh. I just learned something else about Shane, I guess.
And like a black lipstick.
Oh my God, Shane.
And Emily's like, she's like, do you feel relieved? Do you feel like yourself? And Emily's just perfect.
Oh my God, Shane. All right.
Robin goes in and comes out in like an evening gown. She's like, I'm going to go see what Demetrius thinks of this.
Oh,
I was
man.
like, ooh.
Those two.
You should definitely watch the clothing therapy at Heart Event.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for sure. Yeah. And we're going to wrap this up pretty soon here, but any last thoughts that you have on Shane? Because I know like I spoke a lot in here, but you definitely
no, yeah, I
100%
feel like
love Shane.
I divulged a lot of information that I meant to say. Just to kind of like recap it again, like anytime me and you and Sam have like spoken about this or favorite characters or things like that, I laugh, say it's Shane. I'm like, oh yeah, he's an asshole. He loves pizza, and because it's like this is what I didn't want to dig into with that because there's too much. It's a lot. It's all really sad. It's all really real. Yeah. And so it's like it's really easy to just kind of like laugh it off and scope over it. So I really wanted to dedicate an episode to actually explaining why I like him, why I identify with him, things about him that feel really real, which is what people latch onto in a game. Right.
And that's what I kind of caught onto when you spoke about him, even through your jokes, because I'm not the type of person to just say this is one thing and then just pass it off and say, I don't care about this, you're crazy. I was like, no, she's dedicated to this character, let me find out why. And then I started seeing other characters in this and I was like, wow, no, I understand why this is a joke, on like a surface level joke for you in those moments, because it's like the amount of layers to this is insane.
And it's kind of like the same thing as like making like a self-deprecating joke, like when you're talking about yourself and how shitty your life is, and it's like, oh yeah, my life sucks. Yeah. And it's like it's kind of like that where you just leave it there and like that's it, but it's not it.
I think that's what I like about all the characters for this game, because each of them individually can be considered a conversation piece because they're relatable in some way.
Yeah, like, and that's what makes games like this, like, that's why people love this game, like, it has such a following, because people, like, look at things and they see themselves in it. Right. Which is important.
And it's not even fishing for that. It's just representations of personas.
No, yeah, it's so authentic. Like, it's so well written.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. And I related to Shane in that aspect of just not knowing, like, there was part of me that was like that. I've gotten over it, but it's still there in a way, and seeing him kind of working on it, that's the thing I was super impressed by. Where are you doing that?
So what are you riding?
Huh?
What you riding?
What do you mean? I'm not riding the Shane train.
You bought your ticket, you're on it!
Yeah, I'm traveling on the Shane train. Yeah, I'm riding the Shane train.
What's up,
y'all? I'm riding the Shane train. He's a cool guy.
I'm the fucking conductor.
He's a cool guy, and I hope that we get to see more. I hope to see him like pick himself up and do more, because he does more. Again, I don't know how it is during the marriage events. I think after you marry someone, there isn't really much else.
There's a bit. It depends on how many hearts you have with them, because they don't go down, but they can go down.
Oh, okay.
And they can have like bad days with you, like if you don't talk to them every day, because it's like
gotcha.
I think you can go back down to one heart with them if you don't talk to them every day, and they're like, why the fuck did I marry you?
Oh, okay.
They get mad about it.
I haven't gotten that bad. I talk to Abigail every day.
And there are some days where Shane just lays in bed and he's like, I'm not getting out of bed, don't ask me to do anything, like why don't you do something around the house? Like, he gets mean because everyone has bad days, and these days are especially bad if you're in that kind of,
especially from his character, he'd have lapses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's,
and I'm glad they included that, because it's the
real. That's real.
Love fixes all, therapy fixes all, like narrative, like he's not cured, he's coping, and that's what you do, and like, that's just life.
And I like that. I like that the characters in this game are like that, because that's real. I mean, and I read it. I wish I could pull it up here, and I told you when you came in, I shut down my computer recently, so all my tabs went away, but I had found something somewhere that was like a pretty deep synopsis of like Stardew and the characters, and how it affected this person and how they cared about it, and it was really interesting reading that, because it was the way I thought of the game, but the way I think of things is I don't separate myself from them. It's just I don't have the same feelings. But then as I was reading that, I started to because I don't have the same life experiences really. But reading that, I started to really sympathize with a lot, and I was like, no, this is a really helpful game. If this is a game I would suggest to a lot of people.
Yeah,
a lot of people. Doesn't matter their age.
No, yeah, I've recommended this game to literally everyone
Yeah.
I've ever met.
Yeah, there's a lot that people can definitely relate to in this, and that's why I mentioned those age gaps with all the generations of people.
Yeah.
Because speaking to them, I picture people I know.
And honestly, y'all, I've been playing this game for 382 hours, and I still find things that I haven't run into, things I haven't seen, haven't heard. Like, there's a lot in here. And I know, like, every episode you've ever heard from us, I bring up Stardew Valley, but, like, that's the reason. Like, it's so big, and it's so good and in-depth, like...
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. It deserves that. This game deserves it. I'm glad it's on the Switch, because now we'll be able to go to a lot more people. Because before, having Xbox One, PC, and the PS4... Great, a lot of people have those things, but they don't have, not many people have Steam.
Stardew Valley isn't something like you think of when you think of the PS4.
Exactly.
Like, I imagine it gets glossed over a lot
and it's not really advertised. I mean, whenever I had saw it on the PlayStation Store, I was just going through the store. And I was like, oh, Stardew's on here? Well, I have this money. Let me buy it now. So I didn't know it was on there. I mean, it was tweeted out. I think Kotaku tweeted out. Because I know there's a lot of outlets that like this game as well, which makes me happy.
Yeah.
They put a positive light on it too. Like, there's a lot of I think reports from both Polygon and Kotaku you can read about very positive reactions to this game, and I'm pretty happy about that because this is something people need, and I know that I need it because it's a good game and it's a good video game too. It's not just like a bad.
Oh no,
game,
yeah, it's fucking fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and it's really relaxing. This is Stardew is my wind down game. Ultimately, I've been playing a lot of Overwatch recently, but Stardew is a good wind down game for me. So yeah, I don't know. I suggest this game to anyone. So if this is your first time like hearing anything really about Stardew, look into it more. There's some good YouTube videos out there. There are a lot of people who don't go as in depth as we went in this little podcast thing, but they talk about their experiences in the game and how much they like it and stuff. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I definitely recommend checking that stuff out. Anything else you'd like to add, or?
No, I've said my piece.
Okay, well, this is G signing off from the Shane train.
You don't sign out.
This train is going. I don't know why I bought a ticket. I'm still sitting here. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.
So long.